about. What I'm talking about is our allocation breakdown. So let's go to space real quick. Everyone, I'm assuming, is seeing my screen.
Yes.
Awesome. So we've had this allocation breakdown thing, which was kind of a down and dirty way of us breaking down allocations even further into their function and use. So this space is allocated equally amongst, several different cost centers. Let me open something up here and we'll take a look at the breakdown. Previously on the breakdown, you had, hey, here's my actual allocation, and I can change the percentage. And then we had a contacts tab here, which has now gone away because we broke it down far more granular in this breakdown tab. So if we take a look at the grid, we can now identify a principal investigator, a specific grant, the breakdown function, the category, the breakdown function, the use, the breakdown percent, and is this room, whether it's, the room may be a wet lab, but some research that happens in wet labs is not designated as wet lab research, so you do have the ability to designate what the research is. So this dialog is now a little bit more robust in here. And so you can break down, you can set the principal investigator, you can set a grant if you want to use it. Mount Sinai isn't even using the grant, they're just doing the principal investigator and these other percentages. So you can identify those things here. Once you identify those things there, and I'll just break that out equally. Once you identify those things here, what we've done is now brought this into reporting, where we now have a tab that is specific to reporting on these allocation breakdowns. So all of your allocation breakdowns show here. I don't have a whole lot of spaces. Obviously, in some cases, they're going to have many more. Principal investigator, property building floor, the space ID, the grant name, the breakdown category, the breakdown function, the use, the percentage of the breakdown, the area being used by that particular grant in that space. Is it a wet lab or not? The cost center, which is directly pulled from the space and the breakdown that this, or the allocation that this is assigned to. The percentage of the allocation, so physical plant has 25% of this space, and this grant has 50% of that 25%, therefore it has 41 square feet. The allocation area, space name.
What's the allocation area versus the breakdown area?
So there's three areas. The total area of the space is 333 square feet. The cost center has 25% of that, or yeah, I think it's 20. So therefore, no, that's the the cost center has 25% of that. This number is wrong.
Oh, so that's the allocation area.
That's the allocation area, and then the breakdown has 50% of that 83. Therefore, its actual area is this. So you have all the numbers to work with.
Okay.
The point behind this is we're providing a data source where now you can create reports for your customers. The one thing that we did do here for reporting is we have created a theming piece for drawings for this. So I can come in here and I can identify, just like we do with the other stuff, but a little bit different. I want to theme by principal investigator, and I can create labels that are specific to this particular breakdown, so I can manage so you cannot apply these themes in the drawing viewer. You can only apply them here in the reports. So we do give you the ability to manage labels from here. What are the labels going to look like when they show up in there? We also give you the ability to manage colors in here. So once you've actually created things, you can actually manage the colors in here as well that show up on the report. So I'm going to go ahead and theme by principal investigator, and I'll just kind of leave this as it is for now.
Can you change that label for wet lab to something else? So if you're dealing with a different type of client,
you can change it to whatever you want to change it to.
Okay.
So here you go. Here's the report that is now themed by principal investigator. And Jimmy's situation is a little bit unique in that he wanted to see not just the principal investigators, and I'll actually illustrate this more clearly in another, I'll filter this out and we'll show you what we mean. But here's our principal investigators, the space that they occupy on that floor. You can see it's done proportionally, so this room, half of it's not even used for research, the other half is, and it's split between two principal investigators for research. Let me do a filter here on this, so we're going to go ahead and filter this, and let's just do, I just want to see James, and we'll open up that report again. And that report opens up again, and you'll see I filtered for James, but we actually end up with two pieces in the legend. Why is that? Well, this is specific to what Mount Sinai, what Jimmy wanted to see, which was, hey, when I do a theme, I want to see all the spaces assigned to a principal investigator, but I also want to see all of the shared spaces. So this particular space right here is actually shared among the PIs. So they had some very specific criteria, so we were able to kind of show that. And once again, if we come down here and see this, you'll see that this principal investigator owns a portion of these two rooms, 25% of each of those rooms. So this allocation breakdown is an add-on. It doesn't come with the package. You have to license the breakdown piece. Once you do license the breakdown piece, there are parts of it that surface everywhere, and that includes in contacts. So you'll see if you have the breakdown piece, principal investigator for your contacts, being able to add them to the collection ends up here as well. You import into contacts now, you can have a column for labor, occupant, user, vendor, principal, investigator. If the value in that column is the word true, when it's imported in, it'll make sure that that contact is added to that collection. If the value in that field is false, it'll make sure that that contact is not in that collection. If that value in that field is empty, there is no value, it will do nothing related to that contact within those collections.
And that's all available through Data Broker too?
That is not available right now through Data Broker.
Okay.
Data Broker does have the ability, I think, to do occupants, correct?
Right.
Yeah,
yep.
We can designate as occupants. We can't designate as the other right now.
Okay.
Just for my own knowledge, what is a principal investigator?
All right, so in healthcare and colleges, very often outside institutions, a national institution of health or whatever it may be, outside organizations will fund research within a college or a healthcare organization for a particular project. And when they do that, they are funding a doctor, a researcher, to do that work.
Okay.
That is the principal investigator.
Okay.
So I am funding, Dr. James to do a dermatology research on whatever project. I'm going to fund him for 3 years. And Dr. James is going to use these 3 spaces for that research. However, he's not using all the space. He's sharing it with so-and-so. And that's pretty much how it all breaks out. And, so that's what a principal investigator, and, we haven't done the co-investigator stuff because we did that before and nobody ever used it. But those are some things, if somebody wants to do a formal indirect cost recovery module, we can surface co-investigators associated with a grant.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So let me just kind of run through it. So in the next build, you're going to see 2 new groups show up. One of them is just a template. So this read-only group is just really a template. And what we've done is Randy went through and he created a read-only group that basically has access to absolutely everything, I believe, or most, but in a read-only format. There is nothing special about this group other than, I believe it was Pat or others requested, hey, there's so many things to set this up, couldn't we set up just a read-only group? Well, now you have a read-only group. You can copy it, you can create a template out of it, it can't be deleted. We made it a system one. but there's nothing special about it. So it's still going to use a license. You can make as many copies of it and make different read-only groups if you want, but it's configured for that. This viewer group runs a little bit different. So now you're going to have 3 system created groups: the administrator, the global administrator, which is the one we've always had. You're going to have this read-only group, which is really just a template with everything set up so that everything's read-only. And then there's this viewer group. This viewer group is set up in such a way that there is one thing they have access to from a module standpoint, and that is the dashboard, period. That's the only access into the system is through the dashboard. But from the dashboard, you can give them access to pretty much anything you want, understanding that they are absolutely, without a doubt, and cannot be changed, viewers only. They cannot change data. So I actually created a group. I'll show you what the default dashboard looks like. You guys know how to create dashboards where you can put links into modules and lists and widgets and anything you want in there, a requester piece, a finder piece, whatever you want. So I'll just log out, and I'll just log into this and show you what it looks like out of the box. And that's what it looks like out of the box. Hey, welcome to Evolve, and your dashboard has yet to be configured. Contact your Evolve administrator. So you, as administrators or customers and partners, can set up a dashboard for this read-only group. There is only one of those groups that we don't count licenses. So you can set it up. You can give them links to anything they want, understanding that those links, there's nothing they can do. They cannot edit data. They cannot add records. They cannot delete records. They can't do any of that stuff. All they can do is view the information. But you can stick on their dashboard any widget you want to stick on their dashboard. So here's what we've done with contacts. By default, on the grid, these columns will not show. However, you can show columns to identify what collections people are in. And when you open up the dialog, you can add and remove people from those collections right here.
Perfect.
So this should simplify quite a bit. And I may or may not be adding one more depending on some other work I have going on right now for a project, but we'll take a look at some of that stuff later. So that's been done, consolidated. This is a bit of a different layout, but it all works. So just to be clear, here on the contacts grid, you can just say they're in those collections if you need to edit information about them in those collections. As an example, they are a labor record. If you want to add their rates and all that other stuff, that you have to go to that collection to add that data. But at least here now you can see who is tied to all of these different collections. But I think you get the concept. So you can show your one-line diagrams here, and those are all automatically generated just based on, hey, I've made this a service to this particular asset, or I've made this a dependent to this particular asset. Those are automatically created. So here's where there's some major things to talk about. Let's go into, or a major thing to talk about. Let's go into drawings, and let's open up a single drawing here. Let's try this one, because I think this one has a bunch of stuff. I'm going to go to themes, and I'm going to select the theme of, let's hope I have cost centers. Hey, I do. So this looks very similar to what we had before. So this legend looks very similar to what we had before. One little difference, we are calling out as part of the header to this what view or theme you've actually created. And the benefit to that is when we go to reports, now we have something in the header of the theme to tell you what this was. But we've also done this. And let me open this up a little bit. We've now pulled the counts in the areas to the right-hand side of this legend, and if you're selecting counts or selecting area, we're giving you totals, a summary at the end of this legend as well.